Hello and welcome to Bourbon Rocks. Tonight we're going to try something entirely different, something that I have never done before. This is the first time I'm going to try my hand at blending. And so this all stemmed from my review of the mid-range Wellers. First we did the William LaRue Weller from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection, and that's not a mid-range, that's a high-end bourbon from that review we did of all of the Buffalo Trace Antique Collections. We did them individually and then we did a flight, and hands down the William LaRue Weller is one of the greatest bourbons of all time. It rivals the Pappy Van Winkle 20, 23, and 25, but it's exceptional. We also haven't reviewed the lower end of the Weller range, the Antique 107 and the Special Reserve, but we did a flight. First we did individually and then we did a flight of the mid-range Wellers. So we had the CYPB, we had the single barrel, we did the full proof, and the 12-year. And initially when I was going through them, the CYPB and the single barrel I thought were good, but I didn't really find that there was a great niche for the single barrel. CYPB I did enjoy, and thought it served its niche as being the fan-created bourbon. I really thought that the full proof and the 12 were better. They were much more traditional Weller bourbons. That was when I did them individually. But then when I put them together as a flight, I kind of surprised myself. And I actually found that day that I really enjoyed the sort of uniqueness of the CYPB and the single barrel a little bit more than the simplicity of the full proof and the 12-year. Just goes to show that you can taste certain bourbons on one day, taste them again on another day, and sometimes they'll taste completely different. The single barrel, tasted to me the same, but I thought it was just better one night than it was the other night. The 12-year, I actually thought tasted different the second time. So sometimes you'll find that they actually taste differently. Sometimes you might find they taste differently, but you might just like it better on one day or the next. It just depends on your nose and your palate for the day. So the bottom line is it's subjective and it changes. But here's what I thought, and that's what brings me to this blending experiment here. I still originally thought that the traditional Wellers were a bit better. But the problem I had when I compared them all in the flight, and I did mention this in the individuals as well, but the problem with these traditional Wellers is that they each miss something. So the full proof, which is bottled at 114 proof, I thought just needed a little more age on it. It's non-age stated, so it has to be at least 4 years, but most people think this is around 6 to 8 years, and that's probably correct. I think it could use more age, really, to get more, flavor from the wood. And then the 12-year is bottled at 90 proof, and I thought it had a lot of those, wood flavors, but it wasn't enough, fruit and spice to come out of it because it really was too low proof. So the full proof I didn't think was aged long enough, and the 12-year I thought was barreled a little bit too low a proof, okay? So I wanted to bring the proof up on the 12, and I wanted to bring the age up in the full proof. So I thought, you know what? I've never blended before. So, I've blended just by accident or just having fun, but I've never really done sort of a scientific blend. Now, I'm going to do an ounce of each one. Okay, now proof is just a mathematical number. So if you're going to do equal parts, then the proof should pretty much come out at 102. Okay, halfway between 90 and 114. Aging is not necessarily a mathematical number. So just because you're putting a 12 with a 6 to 8 doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a 9 to 10 because, that varies and so forth. But still, it ought to bring you some more of those aged flavors, the oak tannins and some more of the vanillas and caramels that you get from the barrel. if you age it longer. And of course, if you bring the proof up, you ought to get more of the kind of the fruitiness and the spiciness and so forth, I believe. So that's the theory. And what I wanted to see is if I blend these two products, could I then create another version of Weller, which actually is better than the CYPB and the single barrel? And I think I can, because I really like these individually. But we're going to see. So this is the first time on Bourbon Rocks that I've actually used a jigger. I tend to just pour, to my own desires, and I have a rather heavy hand. I tend to pour fairly high volume drinks. So, but we're going to measure it this time. So we're going to do 1 ounce of each. So we'll start out. Let's go with we'll go with the 12 year first. I got my little Buffalo Trace bar towel, just in case I do spill anything down the glass. And now we're going to do the full proof. Move those a little bit to the side there. And I actually have done some blending, honestly, not as a video, but I was out in Kentucky at several places where you could blend your own bourbon from different barrels and so forth and make a bottle that you could, label and name for yourself. This is an interesting little measuring stick that I got at one place where you could take a small sample and then taste it together and so forth. I'm just going to use it basically as a stirrer to sort of mix this up. Set that over on our bar towel. So this is Weller, a wheated bourbon from Buffalo Trace. What I've done is I've blended 50% of the Weller 12, which is bottled at 90 proof, and 50% of the Weller Full Proof, which is bottled at 114 proof and aged somewhere around 6 to 8 years. So we've created a 102 proof bourbon that probably, and there's no really way to show that for sure, but probably is going to have the characteristics of a 9 to 10 year bourbon. So let's see then if we're able to make something special here. I always thought that the 12, ironically enough, was a little bit lighter. It's hard to see through the bottle. When I had it in the Glencairn glasses, I thought it was a little bit lighter. There's not a great deal of difference in the color, so you're not really going to see much change there. The body in both of these was kind of medium to full, and it's the same there. So let's see what we get on the nose here. So now I'm getting some of that fruitiness again, the cherry that always goes through most Buffalo Trace products. I think if you had to pick one fruit that was in Buffalo Trace throughout the entire distillery, I would say the cherry. Cherry also, it tends to be a little more associated with the wheated bourbons. The Pappies and the Wellers have probably even more cherry, but there's a little cherry even in the Blantons, which is the medium rye. They call it high rye, but I'd say medium rye mash bill. And I originally had a little bit of some tropical notes that I thought I pulled out of the full proof initially, and some of that still gets through. It's like a little teeny bit of pineapple, and you get that sort of cakey cookiness from the wheat. Not a lot of spice, maybe just a teeny little bit of brown baking spice on the nose. But you're definitely still getting that the cherry and the maybe a little orange zest, but maybe I think more pineapple in terms of that tropical note, but still more cherry, some vanilla. So it's good. I think we'll find more on the palate whether we've really created something by blending these, because the nose of both of these was perfectly fine in my opinion. I just the weakness in each one really didn't come out until you get to the palate and the finish. So here we go. Let's taste our creation. 50% Weller 12 proof. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, not 12. 50% Weller 12 year at 90 proof, and 50% Weller full proof at 114 proof, and about 6 to 8 years of aging. So yeah, if it was 12 proof, that would just be like wine basically, or fortified wine maybe. Wow. Now I'm getting a little taste here that I really didn't get with either one of these by themselves. It's like it's a little orange, kind of like those little orange cinnamon breakfast rolls from Pillsbury. The ones with the orange icing. You get the wheats bringing in that dough, the little bit of spice, the cinnamon coming probably from the higher proof now, and a little bit of that fruit coming in. Not so much cherry this time. This is a little more orange zest. A little different, actually. You can create a totally new whiskey by putting these two together. Some of the flavors disappear, and it might actually stimulate some new ones. Let's give it another go here. Now I get that cherry coming back. The pineapple's moved on into the orange. The cherry's still there. The vanilla is a little less than it is in the 12, but a little bit more than it is in the full proof. The kind of cinnamon baking spice is a little bit more than in the 12, and a little bit less than in the full proof. So you really are kind of getting more spice from and more fruit from the higher proof, and you're getting more of that vanilla oak tannins from the barrel due to the older age. Again, the proof is mathematical. It's going to be 102 proof. The aging is not mathematical. We're just kind of estimating it somewhere like a 9 to 10 year bourbon. But I do think it creates a different animal and may actually solve the dilemma that I had with each one of these. The finish is longer. That extra proof really does help. This 12 really needed more alcohol. I really needed more proof to sort of bump it up and carry it through, and you can feel it more in the finish now. And then this one just didn't have enough barrelness, not enough vanilla and oak and caramel from the barrel. Had more fruit and spice. This had more of the barrel notes, the oak, the vanilla, and the caramels, and not enough of the fruit and spice. And this is kind of nicely balanced. You've got the oak in there, you got the vanilla and the caramels, you've got the cherry still there, that pineapple sort of morphed into orange zest. You still got the weediness, the cinnamon roll, the cookie doughiness. It's good. It really created a much better balance in this whiskey. So anyway, anyone out there from Buffalo Trace is listening. I think if you do half and half between the full proof and the 12 year, you will create a pretty magical Weller which I do believe would beat out the CYPB and the single barrel. Now, CYPB, interestingly enough, is 95 proof and aged about 8 years. So this is going to be higher proof, also higher proof than the single barrel. It's also going to be probably aged a little bit longer, but again, that's not a mathematical equation. But we've got us a wonderful combination here. Half and half Weller full proof, half and half Weller 12-year, and it brings together those barrel notes and barrel flavors, the oak, the vanilla, and the caramel that comes from the extra aging, and it brings together more of that fruit and spice that comes from the higher proof. And I think this is better than both. And I would say that this, if this was a real bottled bourbon, would be the best bourbon in the mid-range. It's not going to come anywhere close to William LaRue Weller. But then again, almost nothing does Pappy. And I've got a couple other things that I'll review later that might, get in that league. But very few things are ever going to be in the league of the William LaRue Weller from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. But this creation would be the best in the mid-Pappy range. Now, you say, well, come on. Thanks, Bourbon Rocks, but I can't buy this stuff. No, but you can blend. You can buy both of these, and you can blend them. So blending is fun. Actually gives you something else to add to your bourbon collection. So thank you very much. Check us out on bourbonrocks.com. Check you next time.